Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you so much for taking a moment to join. I think we'll take a couple of minutes to just get started with introductions. Carrie, Lucas, if you're okay with that, we will, as people are trickling in, by the time they're in and connected, we will be ready for the meat and potatoes, which is both of you. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Excellent. So welcome to our webinar for the higher education analytics community. I'm always super excited when we have a real live client talking, and today it definitely counts with Lucas Robinson joining us from Mohawk. Carrie, do you want to go to the next slide, please?
Oh, sorry, that was too fast.
I know.
Very sensitive mouse.
Yeah. Most of you know me. My name is Erica Dale. I'm a senior account manager here at Newcomp, but I prefer to myself as an analytics evangelist. So my job is to help you spread how analytics can improve and increase significant quality of life, quality of engagement, and quality of outcomes at your organization. Joining me today is Carrie Marino, who is a client exec in higher education from IBM, and Lucas Robinson, Academic Integration Specialist from Mohawk College. So thank you both very much for being our guest speakers today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All
Next
the way
slide,
from
please, Carrie.
my home here in Markham.
Right, exactly. And yeah. I'm impressed I even get a connection here from Uxbridge, so it's all good. So a little bit about the higher education analytics community and Newcomp. Newcomp has been around and doing analytics for the last 23 years. I've been here for 22 of them officially this week. So we're super excited, and that's what really gets us up in the morning, is learning how we can help organizations improve revenue, reduce expenses, and increase quality of life or reduce risk using analytics. Our partners today are the Higher Education Analytics Community, which is a consortium of higher education institutions, IBM and Newcomp, and of course, Mohawk College. Next slide, please, Carrie. Carrie, are you going to jump right into these, or?
Yeah, I can take it from here.
Perfect. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Erica, and welcome to everyone. I know that there are so many competing priorities today on campus, and many of us are having to do so many different things that we didn't before. And just before I get into the slides and then turn it over to Lucas for, I know what everyone is probably anxiously waiting to see is a demo, I wanted to take a few minutes and just talk about the change that we're all facing today. Because of the pandemic, it's causing us to look at things not differently than what we were looking at change and transformation before the pandemic, but really what is happening is the rate at which things are changing, or how we want to be adopting new technology across campuses is really what's being accelerated. So today we know that organizations are transforming their services with what IBM calls cognitive care. And cognitive care is engaging with citizens, or in your case, students or employees, by leveraging artificial intelligence, which is powered by AI and data. But really behind that is subject matter experts like all of you that support your campuses, understand the resources that are available, understand the data that individuals on campus want to get access to in order to be better served by the campus or the resources that are available to them. So virtual agent technology, or what we will refer to today as Watson Assistant. IBM Watson Assistant is what we have been working with academic institutions on this journey to adopt virtual agents on campus to support students. And I think many of us in our, I call it our personal lives, have recently engaged with a chatbot or a virtual assistant. I know personally, one of the ones that I engage with quite heavily is my telco, that takes a lot of money from me every month on 4 cell plans that are in my family and on a regular basis, rather than picking up the phone and kind of trying to advocate to lower and reduce my cell phone charges every month for my family. I often turn to a chatbot online, and often for a period of time, I can have a very effective conversation with the chatbot that can help direct me and move me through the dialogues and the discussions that I have. But often, because I'm looking for a reduction in cost in my bill, often they do have to hand me off to a live agent. And that's the level of sophistication that we're seeing virtual assistants go through, and a level of maturity in that often a virtual assistant, or what we call a chatbot, will be able to engage in some questions and answers. But then as the dialogue and the exchange between the virtual assistant and the end user becomes more sophisticated, there are ways that you can do that handoff. So we are super excited about the projects that have been underway in higher education, specifically here in Canada. Because we are actually leading the way globally from an IBM perspective with our Canadian customers. So we now have other geographies coming and approaching the Canadian team here at IBM and with our partners to understand how they can leverage the virtual assistant journey that we've been on with a number of our academic institutions for a period of time. So with that being said, just as citizens, as customers, and individuals, we are looking to get access to information in a much more faster and timely way than we have ever before. I know personally that sometimes when I'm looking for information and I don't get it readily, I get frustrated, and I want to just get the information that I need and move on. And virtual assistants are really providing the capabilities to individuals to be able to get access to that information that they need, and be able to move forward with whatever it is that they were looking to consume and understand. On the next slide here, we talk about Watson Assistant and how it's helping citizens. So if we think of the pandemic, just recently, the city of Markham launched a virtual assistant with IBM Watson. And what was astonishing is they deployed that virtual assistant in under 2 weeks. So the pandemic hit, and the city of Markham's call center was getting inundated with so many calls that they couldn't even get those calls in queue, because there was only so many lines. If those of you have ever worked in a call center environment, there's only so many kind of trunks that come into a call center line. So if you placed a call to the call center and you got that fast busy signal, there wasn't even an amount of room where people could be in a holding pattern to get into the call queue. So what was happening was citizens were looking for support from the city, but the city was looking like they were being non-responsive. And it wasn't that they were being non-responsive, they just didn't have the resources to be able to support the citizens. So the city of Markham worked with us to build a Watson Assistant for citizens. And if you go to the City of Markham website, you can actually see the virtual assistant down in the right-hand corner, and how the assistant is serving the citizens. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the mayor of Markham, Frank Scarpitti, but he's very animated, and he's a wonderful leader in our community, and he's got some great little YouTube channels that you can see. And one of the things that he talks about is just how adoption and innovation of new technology is going to allow him to serve the citizens better in the city of Markham. The next slide just talks about how we are also seeing Watson Assistant be used on campuses, and that's all the environment that you are all very familiar with. We've got a number of Watson Assistant projects underway, and I'll talk to those in just a few minutes. And you'll hear from Lucas at Mohawk, who deployed a chatbot, virtual assistant, in less than 15 days. And you'll hear from Lucas that with what they thought they were going to be embarking on was going to be very difficult. With the right team and the right kind of governance and approach, they successfully deployed their chatbot in a 2-week time frame. So today we know that students are having challenges. That hasn't changed either pre-pandemic or post kind of pandemic, even though we're still in the pandemic. Students are looking to get access to information on campus. When they were on campus, they could go and line up at certain offices or get navigated throughout campus to get the support they need. But now being remote, they're even, a little bit more, it's even a little bit more difficult to find the resources that they need. And one of the interesting findings that we've had through the virtual assistant is that campuses are supporting students in so many different ways. There's so many resources that are available to them, but the students just don't know where to go. So in some cases, some of these services are being underutilized just because students don't know about them. So the virtual assistants can actually help guide the students to those resources and also give those organizations on campus insight about the students that are looking for those services. We also have virtual assistants that are supporting employees. So I know personally for me, there's oftentimes at IBM where I'm looking for information in the myriad of websites or databases or team rooms that can serve me in my day-to-day job. And often it takes me time to find that information. So IBM has been great at building out these Watson assistants for us as employees. We are now able to leverage the virtual assistants to help us in our daily jobs. Just a quick example is we have a travel bot that's available that, prior to the pandemic, when I could travel outside of Canada, one of the things as an employee that I needed to be aware of was, what were the travel policies in that country? Where were the hotels that were recommended for me to book, that were safe and IBM recommended hotels? And also what the per diem rates were for my travel expenses. And years before the virtual assistant was created, it would take me some time to find that information. And now basically I can go into the chatbot and say, I'm traveling to Boston to attend EDUCAUSE. What are the per diem rates? What are the hotels I should stay at? And literally within a millisecond, I get notifications as to the questions that I've been asking. So very, very productive for me as an employee as well. Virtual assistants, I talked to this a little bit about the call center with the city of Markham. So virtual agents, kind of like an employee, they're answering calls on behalf of an organization, could be in the cases of your colleges or your universities. And the agents can be leveraging these virtual assistants to also be helping them find information that they need to be able to answer the questions, from their customers that are calling in. So a lot of different use cases across, whether you're an employee, you're a citizen, you're a student, or you're an agent that's working at one of these help desks. So IBM Watson Assistant is the virtual assistant technology that we use. It's in IBM's cloud. And what we have been hearing from clients that have started to adopt the technology is that it's easy to use. You don't need to be a coder or a developer. You can assemble a team with the right expertise and the willingness to kind of roll up their sleeves and learn, kind of a new platform to be able to do some of this development. And you can start to train a virtual assistant and be able to answer questions and guide, in this case, your students, through the information that they're looking to achieve. Watson Assistant can also be integrated, through omni-channel, they call it. It can be through email, it can be through mobile applications. It can be through the phone, or even on your external websites. And the level of what I call sophistication in a virtual assistant gets matured when you do additional integration with your virtual assistant. And what I mean by that is, if you have a virtual assistant on your external website and it's kind of anonymous, you're going to be servicing your end user, or in this case, your students, in a way that you don't know much about your student. They're coming in, you don't know who they are, you don't know what program they're enrolled in. So there's a level of information and exchange that you can have with them. If you do some heavier integration, you can build it in with, say, your student information system, and you could, in a case of a virtual assistant, understand the name of the student, the program they're in, the year that they're going to graduate, and those types of things that you have knowledge about the student can mature and change the level of personalization that you can have in that engagement with your virtual assistant as well. So just to talk for a moment about a couple of examples, and then I'll turn it over to Lucas. Sorry, my mouse here is more sensitive today for some reason. Osler Metropolitan University, I pulled a European example as one to share as well, is that they've created a chatbot that provides 24-hour, 7-day-a-week tech support to students. So if you think of the life cycle of the students when they come on campus or they enroll and they register to a university campus, many of them have challenges with technical support. So how do I get Wi-Fi access? Where are my learning management system IDs? How do I get password resets, etc. So if you think of the level of support that could be enabled through a virtual assistant, technical support is an area where we are seeing a lot of interest across organizations, not just in higher ed, looking at leveraging virtual assistants. The next one, another use case, is the Royal Canadian Navy. It's a little bit more of a use case around how the Navy is leveraging a virtual assistant to support its employees and help their employees get access to information to help them make real-time, better decision making. And then here's a couple of the examples that are specific to some of your colleagues in the other academic institutions. York University has a virtual assistant by the name of Savvy. Interesting, they had a student-led competition to name their virtual assistant, and they had over 1,500 students participate in the naming of their virtual assistant. And there was a proud winner, a student that submitted the name Savvy, and their virtual assistant has been focused on these following areas to help their students navigate and find information on campus. Mohawk, you'll hear a little bit more from Lucas around their journey around helping students, start information on finding information on semester startup. Mohawk launched their virtual assistant in June of this year, and so there was a lot of information and a lot of questions coming forward around the fall term setup, with all things COVID considered. And then the next project that we've done is with the University of Toronto. It's available on their external website as well. So if you go to the U of T external website, you'll see a little kind of navigator option there that you can engage with Navi. And it was all around helping students navigate the support that's available to them with mental health resources. And the mental health piece in terms of a virtual assistant, there's a lot of things that if you want to include mental health flows, we call it, in your virtual assistant, as you can imagine, there's a lot of sensitivity and discussion that is required around privacy and risk with that. So U of T did a very good job at, kind of balancing the level of support that they needed to provide their students, but then also making sure that a user of their Navi virtual assistant, did not misunderstand that they were going to be talking to a live agent. So a lot of excitement in the virtual space around supporting students. And with the York University and the U of T project, those were journeys that have been a little bit longer. We started some of the discussions with them early last year, and the feedback that we've received is that they saw value with the deployments of their virtual assistants even before the pandemic, and with the pandemic, they've definitely seen increased value and benefit being able to support their students. So I will pause there. I'll come back to kind of what's next. If there are institutions that are interested in embarking on building virtual assistants, we do recommend that there's a pathway, that you kind of go through and give some thought to how you do that, how you engage and build a conversational AI platform that is strategic across the campus, or if it's just to start with a smaller chatbot that can answer a certain set of questions that students are having, that's also an option as well. So I will pause there. I don't know, Erica, if we hopefully, if there's any questions, we could take them there, or if we want to leave them, we could turn it over to Lucas.
I don't actually have any questions yet in the chat, so if you do have questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box that is part of the GoToWebinar application. It's probably on the right-hand side of your screen. It does move around depending on where you're at. So feel free to ask them there, and I will ask the appropriate presenter. I love the mental health use case of this, Carrie, because it's so important right now. And a lot of the students I know are facing challenges as they go into, say, first-year university in a pandemic environment, which no one here has ever done, right? So I love that use case. All right, Lucas, if you're ready, we can go from here.
Perfect. I just wanted to confirm: is my presentation showing on screen?
It is indeed, just like you're a trained professional.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I apologize in advance. I am wearing a mask because to ensure a stable internet connection, I am actually on site in the cybersecurity lab at Mohawk College today. So I want to just talk about leveraging the Watson Virtual Assistant. So basically our journey to setting it up, results from a college point of view, my journey with it, and some lessons learned. So about me, I am an academic integration specialist with Mohawk College. Effectively, I tend to be a bit of a project coordinator and anything else for supporting the teams I work with, which has gone from project coordination to RFP and grant submission to website development and chatbot maintenance. In this case, I have taken business analysis and chemical engineering technology at Mohawk College, so I have a bit of technical aptitude, but not a whole lot. So in this section, I just wanted to take us through kind of our steps to taking the virtual assistant online. So back in April, as part of an ongoing conversation with IBM, Carrie had actually brought forward the 90-day trial of a COVID chatbot that we had heard other institutions were using to give information about COVID and the organization's COVID responses to the college. It had a set of about 30 pre-programmed questions related to COVID, and York University had already kind of taken the lead on launching it as with a couple other organizations, even some municipalities and healthcare organizations. So it was really cool. We were really interested in it. So To kind of scope it out, we put together a college working group consisting of a bunch of different areas of the college, the registrar's office, the president's office, student services, accessible learning services, corporate IT, our Center for Teaching and Learning, marketing. We just wanted to ensure that if we were going to go forward with this, that we had the right team to scope out every area, what it would need to look like, how to get it on the website, how to make it align with the college's brand, and ensure that any content would be accurate and could be updated. So we had an initial set of scoping missions with our working team, or scoping sessions with our working team, and an IBM launch group that consisted of Carrie, some people who were experts in setting up chatbots, a very technical person who basically taught me how to do everything because I was a bit nervous about all of this. And to start off, we customized all of the COVID questions based off of local health sites and information, pulling from City of Hamilton and Province of Ontario guidelines, different information from the Mohawk College website, which also forced us to make sure our own website was up to date, which was a great experience. So originally we would send updates to IBM for them to complete on their end, and we would just check that they worked. But then as it moved on, we ended up getting a more hands-on demonstration of how the back end of the assistant worked. We learned the different terminology, such as intents, entities, and dialogue. When I first heard those terms, not understanding anything about a chatbot, I had no idea what they meant, and I was incredibly confused. So basically, to explain it kind of the way it was explained to me, every question consists of an intent and examples. So an intent is the main goal of the user, the question they're asking, what they're trying to accomplish. So for example, I'm a student looking for financial aid, or I want to find out where I can get my books, or I need to know if the college is open. Examples are ways of asking a question. So for the financial aid, it could be, are there any scholarships available? Or can I get a bursary? I need help paying my tuition. Some people just type in the phrase, I need money. Entities are used to help classify the user and make decisions based off of responses. For example, in financial aid, there are different things available depending on if they're full-time versus CE students, or if they're international versus domestic students. So that can help us without having to have them ask a very specific question. It can do a lot of that work for them and move the conversation forward. The next piece is dialogue. Dialogue is the conversation given. So there might be multiple dialogue pieces for a certain question, as with the previous example, when they're talking about a financial need. So they can trigger off of entities, or it can be a very specific response. So responses are what is actually given to the user. If they ask a question, this is what comes back through the system. So it consists of an answer, a direction to a relevant website, usually a web page within our own site, and contact information for relevant people they can contact if they have an issue. So for example, if someone is asking for something related, an employee asking for something related to Mohawk College's HR policies, it will give them a web link to wherever that would be found on the website, and the contact information for the HR email they can contact. So as a result of this, responses have to be checked constantly to make sure that they're displaying correctly. We need to make sure that new information is made available as soon as possible and vetted frequently for accuracy, especially when dealing with COVID. It comes to things like campus openings and what programs are available with COVID. In terms of initial setup, we had expanded the question pool with 30 questions related to Mohawk College. At the time, some of the most important things, which were the summer and fall openings. registration, financial support, and so forth. IBM gave us access to the back end of the assistant, which I will be showing off later. They trained us on creating content. At first, I spent a couple hours a day trying to figure it out, because even though I've spent a lot of time in my career kind of IT adjacent, I have taken one programming course and not very good at it. So I was a bit overwhelmed at first, but it was also because I think I was trying to avoid getting too deep into it to an extent, because I was worried that I'd have to do like actual programming and like that kind of thing. Luckily, that was not the case. So IBM developers worked with our marketing team to embed it on our website. Currently, if you go to mohawkcollege.ca, as I will show later, any of the web pages on our public site will have it embedded. We first set it up in a test environment so we could test every single piece of it to make sure it was working before we launched. So we tested the layout. We made sure that the color worked and that it was in a place where it wasn't embedding over text in most cases, testing the responses, making sure the design worked. And at that point, we started to discuss other questions for other areas, bringing in more people to make sure that we could give the complete picture. Because as we started testing, we'd say, oh, well, what about this? Why don't we have anything related to students getting lockers? So our chatbot was soft launched on Wednesday, June 3rd, because we were just launching it in the middle of the summer and we were still kind of new to it. We didn't do a press release at that time. In the first half week, so until Friday the 5th, we saw just under 1,600 messages and 602 total conversations. A fair bit of this, though, was testing on the live site to make sure everything worked. And we had 76 weak understandings, which was partially due to testing. Weak understandings are basically if the chatbot can't identify what the person is asking, it will give them a response saying, I think ours is customized to say, I'm sorry I couldn't help you. If you want to contact someone at Mohawk College, here's their email and here's a phone number. For example, I wanted to test a lot of things, so I just typed the word pizza into the chatbot over and over to test and see if I could basically get it to break. And I was trying to test different wordings of our intents to see if I could get it to mess up and not map to something. So as a result, our weak understandings have come down a fair bit, but it covers off things like if someone is asking a question that's not in the chatbot, if someone is just saying something that's unrelated, like people ask, you know, when is the next full moon? Stuff like that. And if people get very specific. For example, I am a student in 5th semester nursing. I am looking for the start time for this course. There is the ability to build that functionality in. And at one point, we actually had the assistant crawl our website to pull those documents. But at this point, we do not have that feature currently. So since launch, I've compiled a few results. So overall, we've had stable usage week to week with a large uptake in September. And it's been, I feel, a pretty good success. The peak has definitely been end of August, early September, which makes sense. It's startup and we're in a virtual environment. So there's a lot of questions that people have wondering how the college is operating. We've noticed there are some dips during weeks with holidays. That makes sense because back when I was a student, I would probably not be doing anything involving school on a holiday unless I had a big assignment due. Our best week by far has been the week of September 6th through 12th, which makes sense. That was the first week that school was in. And our worst week was the week that Canada Day took place on. I think it was because it was still the middle of the summer. And, you know, Canada Day was positioned in a way where a lot of people probably weren't looking at our website a whole lot that entire week. So in terms of total conversations, these are the total amount of conversations that have been had by any user and repeat users. We've had 14,000 since launch, an average of 738 per week, and almost like about a third of them have been, a bit more than a third of them have been in September alone. In total messages, we've had about 28,000, an average of almost 1,500 per week, and we've had over 8,000 in September alone, which is amazing because this is part of the benefit of this system, is that it's allowing students to get answers anytime, anywhere effectively from our website. In most cases, there are still those weak understandings where there's very specific things where they can't get answers immediately. But if someone's just looking to find out if their class is running or find a listing of programs, rather than having to email someone or call someone and wait to get a response and then have a back and forth with them, in a lot of cases, it can solve their question, or at least put them on the right path to talk directly to who they need to communicate with. It's also really useful because it allows it to be 24/7 and anywhere in the world. Total active users, this reflects each distinct user of the chatbot. We've had over 12,000 since our launch, an average of just over 600 per week, and under 4,000 in September, but still a great amount. It's worth noting that because we captured this week to week in our analytics, some of these will be duplicate users. I have had to pull a report from the start of the chatbot to now. Full disclosure, based off the fact that I am still part-time at the college, I have not had a lot of job capacity to dig into the full deep dive analytics of everything. So in terms of kind of our top intents that we've noticed, what people have been searching for, program information, how to apply for school, and financial support have always been in the top 4. The order has changed slightly depending on the week. Usually our other top 4 intent is essential program openings, these are the programs that are still taking place in class at the college. Most of our trades programs that involve a very hands-on approach, and fall and winter opening, which makes sense because a lot of students just want to know what's going on, if the college is open, if their programs are virtual or remote or in person. And it fluctuates between those 3 depending on the week and the time of the year. For example, now people kind of have an idea of what the essential programs are. The fall opening has already happened. So now winter opening is becoming one of our top intents week to week. So some post-launch results in terms of impacts on Mohawk College. We have added more than 50 questions to the chatbot. This is pulled from other college areas and inputs from users. For example, every week I go through what our chatbot is not able to answer, and I search to see if there's a common theme or if there's a question that seems, if it's not specific enough that we can answer it. For example, in the first week, someone was asking where Mohawk was located, where one of the campuses were. So I went on and I actually put on questions related to campus locations. One thing that we're going to start adding on soon is going to be information about food services now that those are restarted at the campuses in a limited capacity. And also working with other college areas. Originally we started with that working group, but since then our onboarding team wants to put information about our onboarding website on there. Corporate IT is looking at scaling it for some of that frontline help desk, and also eliminating questions that they get that aren't necessarily related to actual help desk support. We've had people from the different academic areas who have been impacted by COVID in terms of staffing, and work priority to use this as more of a first line response for what an admin would previously do, answering those kinds of questions for students walking into the office. As a result, we renewed the virtual assistant for a year because we saw the value of having it as kind of a frontline support, another way to get students important information. We have weekly status meetings with our working group and IBM to ensure that everything is up to date and working smoothly and to continue scoping out expansion. We've helped to offload areas that get a lot of random inquiries, and it's very useful, again, for that level 1 support. We've been kind of using that as a use case for continuation and expansion of the chatbot to see what other areas it could be used for, such as potentially employee use. Because a lot of this is focused around students and people considering coming to the college because it's on a public site. A lot more areas of the college are interested in integration and usage. I'm still having meetings every week with different areas, basically saying, how do I add on questions? How easy is it to do? Can you do this for me if I get you a list of questions? As I mentioned, we're looking to expand the scope. Another very important impact is that it gives students an anonymous, safe place to ask questions and get answers. I was very nervous when I started college, and I did not feel comfortable asking questions to people on the phone or even sometimes an email, because if I thought it was kind of a silly question, I'm like, oh, they're going to think I'm stupid if I'm asking this question. So it gives a great opportunity to ask questions like that, and you can do it anytime. The other piece of it is we've had a couple of people get very personal about their lives in the chatbot and even open up about their situations in their lives because they feel more comfortable with a automated assistant than a person on the phone. It's also made us more aware of the importance of keeping our website current because we're linking to a lot of stuff on our website. It's forcing us to make sure, is this still accurate? Do we need to change this? We're continuing to update the assistant. It's helping us identify other potential improvements to college processes and where things sit. For example, if we're putting on the chatbot, this is the process a student needs to go to do something, we can look at it and say, oh, well, why does it do that? And then here and there have been some things where we've actually assessed, oh, maybe we should do this instead. This is easier for the student. It's also allowed us to see what kinds of questions students have asked and what's important to them. So different areas of the college are now looking at the analytics and looking at the questions asked to see what are the things we need to focus on with our messaging. What things are students asking about because it's not clear enough in our current state. In addition, more people at the college are being trained on how to update the assistant and view the back end. At first, it was just me, and then we've gotten a couple people in our student services department trained up, and a few other departments are looking at being able to update it with a bit of oversight for me. So we've also recently completed a massive reorganization of the back end of the chatbot to make it easier to be updated and to see some things have to be updated by department when they make changes. Some things have to be updated depending on the time of the year, such as date deadlines for applying to classes. We have created a massive reorganization in the last couple of weeks to make that as easy as possible. So in terms of my personal experiences, basically how I got involved in the project is my manager, who has recently left the college for a amazing job opportunity at McMaster, was the lead person on a lot of our IBM initiatives. So as a result, I became involved in the project. I was kind of given the coordination role, setting up the meetings, helping lead the meetings, and taking notes and acting on a lot of the things that came up as a result. I was asked to learn how to update and maintain the assistant, which freaked me out at first because I'm like, I'm not a technical person. I don't know what I'm doing. But luckily, IBM was able to help me with that. And then eventually, once we launched it, I started pulling weekly analytics reports, basically just a summary of all of our key metrics, which are, the conversations, week understandings, messages, users, and what the top intents were for the week. So as I mentioned, I am in the field of, computers and technology. I am a very non-technical person. I was pretty overwhelmed with it at first. I have some basic HTML and JavaScript and some Visual Basic from high school and one college programming course, but that was it. At first, I didn't understand how everything flowed and how the intents led to the dialogue, etc. But IBM worked with me to create new content, update answers, and do the analytics. They worked with me in depth on how things worked and showed me how it works in kind of a flowchart way. In addition, there are still some times that things are outside of my scope. For example, implementing chatbot logs and downloading them and putting them onto Cognos. I had no idea how to do that, but one of the IBM people on our team went through creating a notebook for me that pulled logs and could update it into Cognos. So they helped me for like 2 hours getting through that. And now I'm able to pull those more detailed logs as a result. So they've been incredibly helpful. Basically, at this point, my day-to-day operations include leading our working group, updating and creating content, testing that the chatbot is working, and testing any new content to make sure that everything is still working when we add new things. Having weekly analytics and meeting with college areas to validate their content and to expand the content. I think that this implementation has given me the chance to work with people across the entire college and given me a better understanding of the way the college operates and the way different things cut across. It's been kind of cool. I just joined the college again back in January, and now I'm working with a team of like very senior level people at the college, which is pretty awesome, especially because I only actually finished school for business analysis under 3 years ago. So it's also been very cool working and coordinating a project team on a college-wide service that is like public facing and meeting people in other areas to kind of see what their issues are, especially when it relates to staffing or capacity, and how we can support them and make sure that their people are working on the things that most matter to them, and we can handle a lot of the frontline things. I've also learned a lot more about IBM technology and chatbots. I've been learning how to use Cognos for the first time ever. I've taken a lot of courses on cloud and chatbot theory that Carrie has been nice enough to provide to me. And I've had a lot of hands-on experience working with the virtual assistant. So now I am going to go into a bit of a demonstration quickly. So I'm just going to go on to, basically, if you go onto our Mohawk College website, in the bottom right-hand corner, I think I just need to minimize. If you go onto the Mohawk College website, in the bottom right-hand corner of any page, you will see this little orange icon. If you click on it, it will bring up our chatbot. So you can either select an option of kind of some of the top intents here, or you can just type in something like, I need money. It will then ask you to select if you're a domestic student or international student. If I'm domestic, it will then bring up, it will ask me if I'm looking for continuing education. If I select no, it will ask me if I'm looking for awards, bursaries, or scholarships, or financial support. If I'm looking for awards, it will then bring up the website where you can then apply for the awards. At this point now, if I type in something like pizza, which does not currently have anything built into the system, it will say, I don't understand. I'd like to be, and give me information on how I can talk to someone. So now looking at the actual chatbot itself, this is the back end of it. So here, and I'm getting a pop-up, but that is okay. Just trying to. Just going to refresh this actually. And if anyone has any questions while I am having difficulty with my computer, please feel free to ask.
This is great so far, Lucas. Thank you so much. We don't have any questions in the chat just yet, so again, please feel free to enter them there, and we will ask them as soon as we can. I had a question for you, Lucas. The initial rollout, I think you told us, but how long did the initial rollout take? And you know, if you're being very self-deprecating and saying, you know, I'm not that technical, et cetera, but you know, how technical do you think someone should be to implement this?
So the initial rollout took about 2 weeks from, we had kind of an initial 5-day sprint where we were meeting kind of every day and talking through it. And then it just kind of became testing and getting everything ready from the college administration side. I'd say that the core of it was 2 weeks. It was longer just because we had to, you know, we had to prove the case to the higher ups and get them to sign off on it and stuff like that. So it didn't take too long once we took care of that whole college administration side. It was fairly quick to get everything set up after that. In terms of how technical someone needs to be, I don't think they really need to be all that technical. I think that basically anyone who has a basic understanding of how to operate a computer can kind of do it. If they have any knowledge of HTML or how assistants work, that'd be perfect. But even with adding stuff to the chatbot, I still use something that helps me code, just to format things. So I think that basically anyone who's in a college or university could do it.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you, Lucas. So are you thinking that the typical sort of team, would it be a mix of a little bit of IT with maybe student success or whatever business units would be involved?
Exactly. I think that's the perfect thing, because a lot of the kind of frontline questions tend to be kind of a student services view. So having that along with corporate IT to help with any kind of technical support, a marketing team or whoever manages your website should be there, because they actually have to go in and implement it onto the website, and then bring in other areas to make sure that that you can add in questions from everyone.
Now, I'm sure you had but we do have one question that came in. How many people were on your project team? And I'm sure that varied depending on which area you were looking at.
So to start, from the Mohawk side, we started off with about 7 or 8, which was myself, my manager, one person from IT, one person from marketing, one from the president's office, and a few different ones from different areas of student services. It's expanded a bit, it's contracted a bit depending on week to week and what we're discussing, but around 8 to 10 has been kind of the key throughout this entire experience.
Awesome, that's great.
So on screen, I am basically just showing off, here is where we have our intents. So these are the main pieces of what the questions are and how they can be asked. So for example, for one of the COVID ones, for example, campus locations, we have inquiries related to where the college is geographically located. And different examples. How do I find the college? Where is Mohawk College located? Where is Mohawk located? And if there's ever a way of asking a question like that that is not covered by our chatbot, I will take that verbatim and add it in, along with any kind of variations on it. It's also worth noting that Watson will actually autocorrect if someone spells things wrong in some cases. So that has been very useful. In terms of dialogue, we've got kind of a bit of a tree here where it shows, a welcome message. We have stuff related to Mohawk. We have about, we have general, and here you can drill down deeper. So it has things related to campus locations, employee questions, important dates, if it's withdrawal, some of our different initiatives, and then specific departments further down, such as our student services, corporate services, etc. But for example, if I click on campus locations, it basically says if the assistant recognizes that someone is asking about a campus location, it will respond with this HTML text. Basically, I just type the response and put the link into an HTML text editor, and it spits this out, and then I paste it here. So if someone asks this question, this is the response that they will get in like a regular text with the link highlighted, and that will take them right where they need to go to find the answer. The other main tab that I use is this analytics tab, which gives some insights on total conversations, maximum conversations, the average amount of messages per each conversation, our current amount of weak understandings, and then some more in-depth graphs and numbers related to that, and some top intents for the week. So for example, you can see here, a lot of people have been asking about transcripts, international programs, CE programs, deadline dates, etc. And that is everything that I wanted to share, actually.
Well, we broke the seal, so we do have a couple of extra questions for you, if you don't mind, Lucas.
I'd love to.
That's awesome. Thank you. So let me just see here, get organized. This is a good one here. How often do you get questions that are pranks, and how do you deal with them?
Oh.
I'm willing to bet a lot.
I get those a lot. People ask really silly questions. People will just swear at the chatbot, which is really entertaining to me because when those come up, we have kind of we have that message where it's just like, if you need anything, please contact us. So they'll swear at it for like 10 minutes and just keep getting that over and over.
You might want to redirect them to an English language course or something like that. I don't know, but that's probably why I don't handle outward communication very often.
It happens a lot, but it's one of those things where in a way it makes my job easier because I just read the message and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't need to do anything with this.
No.
It happens a lot. People will type in random text to try and like just break it. People will spam it.
That's pretty funny.
For like an hour. We've seen a lot of that, but in a way it actually makes my job easier because if I look and I'm like, oh, I have, for example, right now 44 weak understandings. If 30 of them are just pranks or just garbage, I don't have to really do anything with it.
Yeah, it makes your job easy, right?
Exactly.
I have one more question here, and that should round us out. Carrie, this may also go to you. So I think I know half the answer, but if we can't get it done, we'll sort that out and get back to Tony. Regarding the training and all possible responses that the assistant would have, is it a large flat file that gets loaded, or is it something more?
So I can take that one.
Thanks, Carrie.
All of the training that we do in Watson Virtual Assistant is supervised learning. There's and I'm going to answer it in a roundabout way. There's a big misnomer in AI that I'm going to use the term Hollywood AI, that somehow the virtual assistant gets created and it just knows everything about anything. And that's not the case. So one of the values that we truly believe is that there is human engagement in the virtual assistant and the validation of the information that is going to be exchanged between the end user and the virtual assistant. What we've seen in scenarios where you take a file and you upload it or you connect it to a website and there's no human intervention, you find discrepancies. And we saw that early on with York as an example. When COVID first hit, students were asking the virtual assistant if campus was open. And the virtual assistant was saying, no, campus is closed, all classes are on hold. But then the students were going to their faculty webpage, and the faculty webpage hadn't been updated yet to reflect that the faculty classes were paused as well. So if we would have been dependent on just doing kind of mass updates, you lose the opportunity to validate and ensure that exchange that you're having. So it's really key when you're building the virtual assistants that you have that governance and that ownership, and that you make sure that what you're going to be serving to the students in that virtual chatbot is 100% accurate. Because if you don't do that due diligence, over time, what starts to happen is the students will lose the credibility in the virtual assistant and then not want to use it. And it's no different than, the challenges that people or that students have on campus today that says, you talk to 3 different people and you get 3 different pieces of, of guidance. So there are some scenarios where flat files make sense. So a great example would be campus location. So, where's the ATK building? Well, that ATK building has been called the ATK building or, Module J on a campus for the last, 20 years, and it's not going to change. Those types of things we would recommend using flat files for. But on some of the more meaningful, enriched engagements where you really want to make sure that you're giving that right information, that's where the governance piece of the virtual assistant comes in. So hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect. I always follow up. One last question for Lucas. I apologize. I know I said the last one was last, but this one is, I suspect not, but are you currently using multi-language support in your setup?
So there is a possibility. We actually do have, we have an option to set up a French assistant. Currently, we have not pursued that though, just because of kind of looking at the amount of email inquiries and stuff like that we got that were other language. It didn't make sense to make that the focus at this point, but it is completely possible.
Yeah, and
Great,
and
thank you very much
for that, Lucas. I would just echo that York's is fully bilingual in English and French. So they have done that because York's a bilingual campus at Glendon, and that was a mandatory requirement for when they deployed their chatbot.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. And we are very much appreciate the extra 4 minutes that everyone has given us and the attention and time for joining. Lucas, thank you so much for putting together this presentation. It's been really helpful for a lot of people and definitely educational for myself and our team. With that, I'm going to wish everyone a wonderful day and say thank you very much. Bye for now.